Hello, I'm Dylan.
I'm Keon.
This is Trust Your Doctor, that podcast where we watched Monsters, Inc. like 5 minutes before we wrote the script, because this week we watched The Girl in the Fireplace.
Written by Stephen Moffat.
Directed by Euros Lynn.
And aired on May 6th, 2006.
Nice, May 6th, that famous day that everybody knows as the day that this was aired.
Oh, all right. Yeah, I thought you were actually going somewhere with that.
Nope.
Another Stephen Moffat script.
Yeah.
Supposedly, according to you, I just learned 5 minutes ago, he reuses a lot of concepts from this later on.
Yeah, I was thinking about this week. I know for the past month you've been saying, or 3 months more accurately, that authors have 5 stories, or most authors have 5 stories that they just keep retelling in different forms.
Yep.
And yeah, I don't know if I agree with that. It's such a broad interpretation of that statement, but I think Stephen Moffat fits that mold pretty well. I think he burns himself out pretty quickly on this show and reuses a lot of things a lot of times. A lot of things that appear in this story reappear throughout Stephen Moffat's era quite a few times.
Well, most writers just have a couple, as in probably 5 to 15, depending on who it is, topics that they bring in and deal with. Mm-hmm. And I guess it's just how much you can differentiate yourself within those areas. That's what I think, at least. Mm-hmm. And you can actually see that with Russell T, even so far on the show.
Yeah.
But yeah, Russell T at least does a pretty good job of varying it up. But we'll see. Well, I'll see, I guess, where Moffat goes.
Well, Moffat's first story of his run as showrunner directly lifts the major conceit of the story. But anyway, that's a spoiler for later on. So it begins with something that appears completely out of context until you're halfway through the story, because it's some lady in France running into a bedroom. There's just chaos going on outside. She's calling for the doctor through her fireplace.
But after you learn what's going on, you kind of piece together what this scene is before it happens again.
But when the episode starts, you're what is going on?
This guy comes in this room, he's like, what are you doing? We're about to die. And she's like, the fireplace. I gotta contact the guy in the fireplace. And the guy's like, yeah, you're insane.
Yeah, as most reasonable people would react to someone walking up to the fireplace and calling for the magical person who apparently lives there. I think I'm having difficulty thinking of another story that did this, where the pre-title sequence scene appears later in the story.
Oh, so it's like a
flash forward,
cold opening type thing. I think that's what that's called.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe this is the first one.
Just thought that was interesting, because we've had a couple other ones where it opens in the middle of the action, like Stephen Moffat's other story, The Empty Child, where it opens when they're chasing the time capsule. But I'm trying to think of another story where we've had the opening scene has been a cold open, but also been a flash forward to later in the story. Just interesting. Mm-hmm. But yeah, then we get the title sequence.
And then the Doctor and Rose and Mickey show up on, guess where, a spaceship.
Oh, Mickey's really excited about these. Oh yeah, I got a spaceship on my first try. And Rose is yeah, welcome to the club. Really pooping all over Mickey's parade here.
Yeah, well, she's been on a lot of spaceships.
Well, yeah, but that doesn't mean she has to squash Mickey's enthusiasm.
But she can.
That's
why
she can.
She does.
No, that's not.
Yeah, kind of sad that Mickey sort of gets shafted and doesn't really play much of a role in his first story as a proper companion.
Neither really does Rose, to be honest.
Yeah, this was more of a Doctor-only story, focused on the Doctor and the Doctor's great adventure in France.
In the fireplace?
Yeah, they do enough. They're more just comic relief / damsels in distress.
Yeah, well, Rose gets to get her customary season 2 entitlement jab at the Doctor in later on, so...
What? I don't remember this.
When the Doctor shows up to rescue, she's like, wow, took you long enough.
Yeah, well, maybe it did. Maybe it just took him long enough. the perfect amount of time.
No, no, the way she said it clearly meant that she expected him to just come riding in on a horse and save the day. Haha, spoilers. But so they find a fireplace, and the doctor's like, why is there a perfect replica of a 15th century fireplace in the middle of this futuristic spaceship? Good question.
And they never actually answer that, surprisingly. No.
But
they answer it like pretty much immediately.
Yeah, but well, so the doctor's like fiddling around with the fireplace, and then he's like, "Ooh, secret lever!" And he pulls the lever. Well, actually, first he finds a girl on the other side of the fireplace.
They see some sort of projection, and it's a little girl.
And she's
I'm
like,
sure
"What's
it's
that?"
definitely not the woman from the beginning of the story.
But yeah, so the doctor's like, "Hey, can you tell me like what year it is?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, 1782 or whatever she said. I don't remember the year."
Yeah, it's earlier than that, but yeah, sometime in the 1700s.
And the doctor's like, "Ah, yes, good year. August was kind of bad, so watch out for August." And then he like finds a secret lever on the fireplace, and he flips it, and the fireplace turns around. And the doctor's like, "Hey, I'm looking for Renette," because she said her name was Renette. And then the little girl's like, "Man, it's been like 5 months since you were here last." And I was like, "What? It's been like what? Like 3 minutes?"
And yeah,
Yeah,
that's how that exchange goes down.
Well, so then the doctor notices that the clock is broken, which is important because you can still hear ticking, but the clock is broken.
Yeah,
Doctor's
and
like, "What's
well,
going
I
on?"
mean, I didn't hear it until the doctor pointed it out.
Yeah, neither
And
did I.
I think there were some. I think a previous story had used the same trick. It's not really a trick, but more. I don't know. Yeah, I guess I'll just call it a trick. I think it was an audio, but I don't remember which one it was.
Yeah, I'm just trying to remember.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't
I don't
remember.
remember, but it doesn't matter. The doctor points out that you can still hear a clock sound, and it's coming from under the bed. I think.
Yeah, because then the doctor's like, "All right, stay in the middle of the bed. Don't put your hands and legs over the sides. Don't want to get them chopped off." So he goes like under the bed. Well, actually, first he uses the sonic screwdriver to light a candle, which who knew he could even do that. But then he looks under the bed and he sees like a person, and he spooks the person, and the person like jumps up next to the bed. And the doctor's trying to talk with the person, and he's not answering the doctor. But then Renette's like, "What's going on?" And the person's like, "We need you."
Yeah, I mean it's obviously a robot, although you don't know like for sure yet. But it's sort of dressed as a clown slash
It's dressed just like a
jester.
courtesan
Yeah, well, with
with a mask.
the mask of Mandragora. No.
So it only answers Renette, and the doc's like, "What do you, what?" The robot's like, "We need Renette," and then it leaves. It like teleports out. Apparently they have like a teleport.
It tells them that she's not ready yet.
She's not complete, yeah. And the doc's like, "Well, that's kind of weird. I'm gonna go back to the thing, and I'm gonna find out what's going on." Well, actually, so yeah, this robot doesn't teleport out yet, because this robot actually goes back in the fireplace with the doctor, because then they freeze it, and the doctor's
Yeah,
like, "This is kind of weird."
It tries to like kill the doctor. It has a mini sort of sword, knife, stabbing device.
Bayonet.
I mean, I guess it sort of is just like the bayonet, like sharp thing, tip area,
Yeah,
point, whatever you want to call it.
the actual knife part of the bayonet.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, it goes back into the fireplace, back onto the spaceship.
And so the doctor grabs like a nearby gun thing and freezes the droid
I
thing.
think it's just a fire extinguisher because Mickey's like, whoa, an ice gun.
And that's like, nope, fire extinguisher. Really, really advanced looking fire extinguisher. Also designed to look like an actual gun, even though all it does is like spray super cold foam. Like it doesn't. I don't know if it makes sense that
your
in the
fire
future.
extinguisher isn't designed to look like a gun.
No, mine looks like a big red cylinder.
Oh wow, you're missing out,
Am I?
I guess, on
Am I really? What am I missing out on?
the gun-shaped fire extinguisher.
Doesn't really sound like I'm missing out on that much. If we're gonna be
Well, I
honest.
mean, if you don't want one, then I guess not. But anyway, I think they go and take a look around the spaceship.
Well, the doctor tells Mickey and Rose not to look for the
He
robot
tells them
because
to
the robot
stay where they
teleports
are.
out now. And they're like, And Rose is
It
like,
bails.
he told us not to look for it. And Mickey's like, yeah, so we should listen to him and stay here. And I'm like, yeah, Mickey, you've got the right idea. And then Rose is like, oh.
Mickey, you know you can't be a companion of the Doctor if you say things like that.
Mickey's like, wow.
At
So
least he's getting inaugurated pretty quickly. First serial doesn't do anything, wanders off.
doesn't follow
Pretty
the doctor's
standard.
direction.
Pretty standard stuff.
So the doctor goes back through the fireplace and sees like a girl there now, like a young lady. Not like a girl, but like
Yeah, an older,
an older girl.
definitely 17-year-old girl played by like a 30-year-old
Yeah.
woman.
And he's like, hey, I'm looking for Renette. And she's like, ah, nice, Renette. And then she gets called by her name, Renette. And the doctor's like, whoa, okay. It seems like I've missed a couple years.
You know what's weird about this story? I mean, I guess this is just due to the fact that it's a 45-minute story. And this kind of starts here is that Renette just sort of takes all of this in stride.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I would have expected her to react a little more, but
Well, well, also, the thing about that is that means she falls in love with the doctor after knowing him for...
yeah.
I mean, she claims she's known him since she was like 5, but do you really know a person if he comes out of your fireplace for 5 minutes and leaves? I mean...
Yeah, that was the thing about this, because Renette, I guess butler and mom are trying to tell her to hurry up because they're about to go somewhere, but she's in love with the doctor, and they kiss here. I was just like, he's this weird guy who you've seen twice for like 5 minutes 10 years ago.
And he came out of your fireplace, like, come on. She, like, kisses him.
And they never really do anything with the romance either. I mean...
Well, the doctor seems pretty torn up about it at the end.
Yeah, but I mean, other than, like, the doctor kind of wants to stay and Renette wants him to stay, but that could have been, like, a friendship as easily as it could have been a romance.
Well, because I think they were trying to make it a romance because I think what they wanted to do was to make Rose jealous.
Oh, great.
I mean, because let's be honest, she kind of was, because we actually cut to... This isn't right now, but it's in a later scene pretty soon where Mickey and Rose are exploring the spaceship, and Mickey's like, so what about... that doctor got all those women, Sarah Jane, Cleopatra, Madame du Pompadour. And Rose is like... He didn't know Cleopatra, and he's like, he called her Cleo.
Yeah, I wonder if there's a audio or book for that.
Who knows? I mean, probably. Let's
Probably.
be honest. But yeah, so this is when the doctor realizes that Renette is actually, like Jean-Antoinette Poisson, Madame de Pompadour, apparently the mistress of King Louis XIV?
Yeah, probably the 14th. Really had a problem thinking of other names, apparently.
Well, and it's also revealed that the palace they're in is Versailles, so...
Yep.
The doctor's like, wow, I just snogged Madame de Pompadour. He's like, checking that one off the list.
I didn't know snog was slang for make out. I thought it was something else, but it's a British term, so I guess it doesn't really matter to me.
I think it can be either, depends on the context.
All
kind
right,
of like
well,
colorful American colorful American words, like the F-bomb.
I don't think that's just American, but anyway, Rose and Mickey come across a camera with an eyeball in it.
Yeah, that's kind of creepy.
They're like, whoa, they designed these things really realistically in the future.
But then Rose opens up like a little vent and is like, wow, that's a real heart.
Except they made it look like, I mean, it didn't really look realistic in any way. It sort of just looked like a red clown nose almost.
Well, what bugged me more about that scene was that, like, Rose goes to open the vent at first and she touches it and draws her hand away like it's really hot, but then she, like, just grabs it and opens it, like, right immediately after, and I'm like, that would probably burn your hand. Because then she has no reaction to it, and I was like, wow.
So they're finding all these body parts in the spaceship, and this serial made me think of, it's not serial, this story made me think about this tendency of people to say like, wow, or something along the lines of, wow, you're so smart, your brain is like a computer, where it should be like the other way around, right? Like the computer is like the brain. I just thought that's a weird tendency that people have, and there's more examples of that, but that's the only one I can think of right now.
Well, I think pertaining to that phrase exactly, I think when people say your brain's like a computer, they're referring to how quickly your brain works and not necessarily how it works, because in how it works, the brain is far superior to a computer, but on the flip side, a brain is not typically as fast as a computer, at least in
Well,
terms of performing like complex mathematical.
I mean, I think people just say it when they mean like, "Wow, you're really smart" or something like that. I mean, I get that a lot, but no, I'm just kidding.
Humble brag.
But there are other examples of that where it's like the something natural is compared to like something man-made, where it should be the other way around.
Well, I think maybe
I
it's
don't know.
just how. What's the word I'm looking for? How like humans are like really proud of their accomplishments,
I guess.
but like overly so. I don't know. I don't know
Yeah.
what the word I'm looking for is. It's completely flown my mind.
But anyway, that doesn't really have much to do with this story, I guess.
Yeah, so while the doctor comes back and he's like, yeah, you guys is kind of weird, this spaceship. But then he finds a horse and he's like, whoa, where did you come from?
So they obviously know that the ship has some sort of connection to 18th century France and things are getting through.
Yeah. Well, the doctor finds another doorway now. Like, it's just an actual barn door. So he goes through and he sees Renette talking with her friend, and they're making funny 15th century humor. She's like, I hear you're in love with King Louis the 15th. She's like, yes, I'm really looking forward to meeting him. Ha!
Ha 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 ha. I never noticed that the doctor wears sneakers.
Oh, yeah. That was also, I think, a request of David Tennant. According to, I think it was 42 to Doomsday, which I was listening to this week, David Tennant saw John Oliver wearing a suit with sneakers. Like, I want that for my
Well,
my
like
costume.
previous doctors have worn similar things, like the Fifth Doctor, Seventh Doctor, I think, wore sneakers.
Yeah. Later on, when the 10th Doctor meets the 5th Doctor, he says that his whole look was inspired by the 5th Doctor, which is also partially because growing up, David Tennant's favorite Doctor was the 5th Doctor.
Wow. All right then. I guess he got to be double the Doctor.
Yeah, I guess. It's really weird because David Tennant's basically... David Tennant was a Doctor Who fan growing up, and that made him want to act. So then he got into acting because of Doctor Who. Then he became the Doctor, and then he later married Georgia Moffat, who is actually Peter Davison's daughter, which makes Peter Davison David Tennant's father-in-law.
Yeah, I think we brought that up at some point.
So,
But I
David Tennant really
forgot
went
that,
like
actually.
head first into Doctor Who. But yeah, so he's like watching her talk, and he's like, wow, that's kind of neat. I
Just
guess.
hiding behind a wall.
With his horse.
Master stealth. Totally concealed.
Stealth level Splinter Cell.
Forget what happens next.
The Doctor takes the horse back onto the spaceship, I think, because some guy's like, hey, you seen a horse? And he's like, nope, no.
It's
So,
been called Horse on a Spaceship to mirror the future story Dinosaurs on a Spaceship.
I was thinking about that story the other day. I don't remember why I was thinking about it, but I think because it was written by Chris Chibnall. Anyway, so the Doctor... This was a pretty funny line, I thought. The Doctor meets up with Mickey and Rose again, and they're looking through like a mirror at Renette. And Mickey's like, why is there a horse on the spaceship? And the Doctor's like, why is 18th century France on the spaceship? Mickey, get some perspective.
Yeah, I didn't find that funny. But yeah, they're looking through this mirror, and it's like a one-way mirror, I guess, sort of like those trick mirrors.
Or like those mirrors in the interrogation rooms in like every police procedural on television.
And they're watching Renette. I think she's getting lectured by someone.
Well, this is the night of the ball where she meets the king for the first time. So she's like getting all ready to go out into the ballroom to dance with the king. So the butler or the king or whatever is like, hey, you want to come out and dance? She's like, just give me a minute. I got to get ready. And he's like, you need to go out now. Ball's starting already.
Yeah, I don't know how big. I mean, obviously, this wasn't actually recorded at Versailles, but I don't know how big Versailles is. But based on this story, they made it look pretty small.
Really? I thought they made it look pretty big in this story. Versailles is huge, by the way.
Well, I mean, the interior looked pretty big, but when we get the like outside shot or like that shot at the end, looking out the window, it kind of looked pretty small to me.
I think maybe
It was just
it's
that one
kind of
weird
just cramped,
scene.
maybe.
I don't know. I know it's just in like a random field in the middle of I guess it's in Versailles, and the palace is technically like the
Hmm.
Palace of Versailles.
Yeah.
So the area is called Versailles. But yeah, I've seen like like wide shots, or not wide shots, but you know what I mean, like,
Yeah.
and it's just sort of like in a field, just like out in the countryside. I guess that was the point. But
Yeah, because back in those days, if you were wealthy, you showed your wealth off by owning a lot of land. So if you're the king of France, you own a massive plot of land and you put a big palace in the middle and then you make the plot of land like 50 times as large as the palace because you can do that because you're the king. And anyone who says no, you just bad them. Anyway,
anyway,
the doctor like flips through the mirror and is like, "What's up, Renette? It's me, your favorite person." And she's like,
it's
"Yep."
been 10 years.
Well, in the beginning of the story, at the weird random stinger, I guess, when she's talking with the King of France, she's like, he's like, "Who are you calling?" And she's like, "The only other person who I've ever actually loved, besides you, of course." And he's like, "Wow, I'm insulted." Also, the doctor explains that apparently the Queen of France is just okay with the King of France having a public mistress that everybody knows about.
Yeah, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's a real thing.
Yeah. This is like almost a pseudo-historical, this story. It's like a historical in half the
Yeah,
story and like a super hardcore sci-fi story in the other half, which is
yeah, it's
interesting.
yeah. I think we actually discussed this before, but I'm pretty sure in the like classic historical serials from like the first Doctor's era, they didn't incorporate many sci-fi elements. Like I think the only sci-fi element was like the Doctor himself in the
Yeah,
TARDIS.
yeah. That's what was traditionally considered a historical, which is why like something like Black Orchid was also considered like a historical because the only science fiction element in Black Orchid was the TARDIS and the Doctor.
That one wasn't really based on history. It was
I mean, it was kind of barely, but like that's what I'm saying for this is like it's almost a pseudo historical where like historical elements, like real historical elements, are a major part of the plot of the story, but like there's also an entire almost a B plot, but that's set on the spaceship in the future that kind of explains the events of the past.
well, I think it's more than like a subplot because the robots show up in
Yeah.
France. I think we actually glossed over a scene where they show up again.
Well,
Or
that's
it's
right
coming up
now.
right
It's
now.
right now when he flips through the mirror because he notices the clock is broken again.
Man, you really gotta fix that clock. It's been like 20 years.
And so the robot's like not answering. Oh yeah, Mickey and Rose come through this time with the doctor. And it's just like, "Hey, what's going on?" The robot's like not answering, and Renette's like, "Hey, you're gonna answer all the questions that are put to you because I say so." And they just agree to this. Although I guess at the end of the story you find out why. So they're trying to they're
They don't
asking the
really.
robot, and the robot's like, "We need Renette." And then this is when the doctor finally pieces it together what happened on the spaceship. Because he's like, there should have been like 50,000 people on that ship, or 5,000 people.
There's not. So the body parts that we've been seeing on the spaceship were parts of the crew, and that they used to fix the ship.
Yeah, because apparently the Clockwork Droid's primary directive, I guess, was to fix the ship. And the doctor mentions that nobody told them that, hey, people are kind of out of. People are off limits.
Yeah.
So when they ran out of actual parts, they fixed it with people. Because right now the droid's saying, we didn't have the parts. We didn't have the parts. And the doctor's like, what is that? Oh.
Kind of almost like in last week where K9's like, we're in a car. We're in a car. We're in a car, Mickey. And Mickey's like, oh, we're in a car.
Well, I mean, I can kind of forgive both of these situations because both of the people saying things are being really vague about it.
No, I mean like they're funny. Even this one, as gruesome as it is kind of funny. It's like, we needed parts.
And the doctor's like, ah. So then,
The droid tells them that Renette's still not ready.
yeah, the doctor's like, what does that mean? But, what does that mean, though? So Rose and Mickey go back to the spaceship to go hunt more things, I guess. And
I don't know why they go back. I actually can't
I
remember.
actually don't remember, even though I watched this yesterday. But they go back. I think because the droid teleports out because Renette's like, I just want you to leave. And the doctor's like, no, don't say that. It's gone. It's gone. So Mickey and I almost said the Rose right there. Rose go off to, I think, find the droid.
Yeah, I think they probably. I'm just making this up, but it's probably true. They go to find it before it can get to another point in time where it can contact Renette when she's complete.
Yeah, I think we know Doctor Who well enough to know what probably happened, even if we don't know exactly what happened. Anyway, Renette's like, hey, you should come dance with me, Doctor. I'm like, wow, Stephen Moffat reusing the euphemism he introduced to the Doctor dances. Nice. And he's like, no, I can't. No. And she's like, yes, you can. He's like, this is the night you're supposed to dance with the king. And she's like, well, I'll make the king jealous first. And he's like, ah. And then she kind of just drags him away, and he's just okay with this.
Yep.
He's like, I guess I'm doing this now.
Meanwhile, Mickey and Rose have been captured.
Oh, yeah, this is when Mickey's actually, like, teasing Rose about all the girls that the doctors love, because he's like, Sarah Jane.
Yeah, makes a little bit more sense here now that Renette isn't, 7.
And Rose is like, no, he doesn't. Loves me, and only me.
She doesn't say that.
Yeah, she insinuates it.
Yeah, really don't like where they're going, playing up the romance, jealousy aspect a lot. But I guess I just have to deal with it.
Yeah, now you know what I experienced the first time I watched this. I think what they're doing is, this is what it feels like they're doing anyways. They're trying
Catering to the teenage audience by introducing a love triangle.
Well, I wasn't talking out of universe. I was talking like, what they're trying to do, I think, is they're trying to make it out like the Doctor like understands that Rose is in love with him, but like doesn't want to fall in love with her. Like last week when she's like, I thought I was special, and the Doctor's like, no. Well, she's like, I thought we had something, and I was like, the Doctor doesn't respond.
And then this whole speech about not wanting to get too connected because everyone dies.
Yeah, so the Doctor's like, I think they're trying to make it out like the Doctor like subconsciously might want to be with Rose, but knows that that's kind of, that's a bad idea for a lot of reasons. But I think what they're also trying to do on the flip side of that coin is they're trying to play up the fact that Rose is into the Doctor, because apparently being subtle doesn't exist in Doctor Who anymore. And so they're playing it up like a lot. And I think by playing it up, they're making Rose out to be like a really jealous character, which makes her like really unlikable later on.
Yeah, she, I don't know if I would go this far yet, but she's kind of seems out of character this season compared to how she was in series 1.
There was a transition, I feel like, but I think it was a really quick transition, which is why it feels like it was out of character. But I don't know. It's something we can look back on at the end of the season and see what happened to her this season.
Yeah. But anyway, they get captured.
Yeah, so then... And then Rose is trying to, like, sound all menacing about the Doctor. Like, the Daleks have this tales about him. He's like the oncoming storm or whatever. And the Doctor's like, hello, it's me.
Yeah, the Doctor walks in drunk.
He's got, like, a tie around his head. I don't think he's actually drunk, because he snaps out of it pretty quickly. But he's got his tie, like, tied around his head.
Thanks for spoiling it. Just kidding.
Forgot to mention earlier on when the Doctor mentions... Or this might even be later. I don't remember when it happens in the story, but... I think, actually, it's when Rose is talking to Renette. When he goes back to the ship with the clockwork droid, he's like, this is just a nightmare. And Renette's like, it's a nightmare? And he's like, yeah, even monsters have nightmares. And she's like, what do monsters have nightmares about? And he's like, me. But anyway, so the Doctor like pours wine, which isn't actually wine. It's like anti-oil.
I forget what it was, but it's some fluid that makes the droids malfunction / die.
I think this is the first time I actually see the inside of the droid head, which was really cool in my opinion. Yeah. I really liked the design.
Takes off the mask, and it sort of looks like clockwork. They have sort of a clear exterior head, and then the inside is mechanical and golden. Looks pretty cool.
Lots of gears turning, flipping around.
This could have been the design of like a recurring villain. So,
well, I mean, not to spoil anything, but they do return at least once more.
Well, I mean, this was actually a really cool design, like a Dalek level design that I really enjoyed.
And I think they put a lot of time and effort into making the droids look really cool, because they do look really cool. And also the costumes in this story I thought were pretty cool, all the French costumes anyway. Or at least the costumes that the droids were wearing, because they were like really over the top and extravagant.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I didn't really notice it, but nothing that really makes you go like, wow, they really cut
corners
there.
Yeah, they kind of, at least I think the production department went all out on the story, making the best use of what they had. Yeah. Even though the spaceship corridors seemed, I mean, kind of a little bit boring, but what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Especially when, like, you in the same story you have, like, the hallways of Versailles. It's kind of hard to compete. So,
which I guess actually comes up in the story later when Renette gets on the spaceship, but we'll get there.
Yeah. Well, so then the doctor just pulls a lever, I guess, and they all turn off. And now the doctor's like, so he realized when he was with Renette this time because now he snapped out of being drunk real quick. This
Yeah,
is also when
he was just pretending. So
yeah, when he shows up, this is when Rose is like really condescending, like, "Wow, took you long enough. It's the oncoming storm." And the doctor's like, "Yep, it's me. I think I invented the banana daiquiri a little bit too early, but whatever."
there's actually a reference to Dr. Dance's the banana line. I
Yeah,
like bananas or whatever it was,
I was okay
bringing
with
back
it.
that classic line.
Well, I was okay with it in this context because the Doctor's pretending to be drunk, so it's not like he's being serious about carrying bananas around everywhere like the Ninth Doctor was.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so then they're like,
Still, it's kind of just Stephen Moffat shilling his own
what,
writing,
banana?
his own
Banana
joke.
supremacy? Like, bananas are the supreme fruit.
They are the most popular fruit in Britain.
Well, here's a fun fact for you. All bananas are actually clones. They're all genetically identical.
Not all of them.
No, they are. They are. Because
It's just Chiquita bananas.
well, all bananas are actually identical because back in the 70s, when the whole banana,
Fad.
the Central America banana plantation thing was happening, they realized that they could plant a lot more bananas if they just took stems of the previous bananas and replanted them. So all of them are the same banana, but then at some point there was a storm coming and they needed a banana variety that was more resilient to the storm than the ones they were planting. So then that's how we got the bananas of today. They found a new variety and started planting that. But all bananas are actually identical because all the other species kind of got wiped out or at least severely damaged in that kind of time period.
That's just American ones you buy in the stores here, though. I don't necessarily believe that, like, they all got wiped out and all of them are
Well, they
cloned.
may not have all gotten wiped out, but all bananas are identical.
I guess I'll look it up, and I don't really believe that. So, I mean, I've heard that about Chiquita bananas, like the brand. Yeah, that's all I've heard about that.
Okay. Show notes. Check the show notes. Someone will be correct on this. So then what happens is the Doctor realizes that the Doctor had realized that they're looking for Renette when she's 37 because the ship's 37 years old, but he doesn't really know why they need Renette to be 37, but they think that when she's 37, her brain will be compatible because apparently the ship doesn't have a computer. They needed
Yeah,
the brain for the computer.
yeah. This was the part that actually made me think about the brain computer comparison thing. But whatever.
So then the Doctor, the Doctor, for whatever reason, sends Rose to go tell Renette that he's going to be there when Renette turns 37 because that's when the droids are going to come
Yeah,
attack.
I forgot about this scene actually. So Rose goes to tell Renette, and she does. She kind of just explains what's going on. Renette has already sort of figured it out, surprisingly, considering she's from the 1700s and has only seen these people like once every 10 years.
Well, then she's like, wow, the Doctor can't come and give his messages in person. I was like, yeah, why didn't the Doctor just go himself? Like, what was the point of sending Rose? I mean, like, out of context, like, out of the story context, it's because they needed to give Rose something to do, but, like, there's really no reason why in the story the Doctor doesn't just go.
Could have just sent Mickey.
Could have also sent Mickey. Instead, he sends his jealous pseudo-lover to go talk to his new lover. Brilliant.
Yeah, I don't know what Mickey is doing at this
Important
right now,
junction
actually.
in the story. I made a note, actually, earlier on when Mickey had the, like, fire extinguisher. He made a really impressive roll when he turned a corner in a corridor, which I thought was pretty cool.
All right.
So then the Doctor's, like, hooked up an audio link to one of the windows, the window in the fireplace, actually. And so Renette hears it and she like goes through onto the spaceship. He's like, wow, that's kind of weird. I'm amazed when she didn't go back onto Versailles. She didn't like skip ahead 10 years because it seems like every minute on the spaceship is like a couple months
at least.
Rose is like, yeah, that's you. In the future, that's your voice. Because they hear Renette from the beginning of the story going, hey, help, Doctor, come, please. You said you would.
Yeah.
So Renette's like, wow. Spaceships. It's kind of cool.
She actually doesn't think it's that cool. She goes back to Versailles and she's like, I have no desire to go back there ever again.
Same.
And like, yeah, as we were saying before, like if you live in Versailles, and spaceship's probably not going to look that cool. This actually has to do with one of my concerns, I guess, about this story is that Renette sort of just takes everything in stride. You think that someone who's never really experienced any of this and doesn't even have like a concept of like spaceships and this level of technology would sort of get freaked out and would have their whole worldview just destroyed by going on this ship. But I guess not.
Well, she's also seen, like, before this, she saw a robot teleport away. And also she saw that they're made of clockwork.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of it too. But she kind of just takes all of this pretty well. So,
I mean, what are you going to do, really? There's no time.
Yeah, there's no time.
To make it, like, making her really incredulous about all this and just shattering her mind when she sees these things would basically diverge the plot entirely from where it was going in the story, which really, this is more of a story about the Doctor than anybody else.
Yeah, I guess. Because it's definitely not about Rose and Mickey.
Well, because there's also the scene where, like, the Doctor looks through Renette's mind because he's trying to figure out what they want in Renette's mind, and then she, like, looks into his mind while he's doing it, and she mentions, like, he's always lonely, and that's why he travels with people.
Yeah. Now he always has closed doors in his mind.
Yeah, because there's lots of things he doesn't want to share with people, like the fact that he killed his own people in the Time War. That's kind of a thing you don't want to just share nonchalantly.
Touching. Really liked that closed door in the mind metaphor. That's not something I've seen before. Sort of unconventional and unique. It's not. It's not.
No, but that's okay. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
I guess it is okay. I guess all of this is just okay.
But yeah, what I'm saying is,
the story was just okay. Not really anything special, just okay.
The story is like about how the Doctor is and how he travels and tries to save people, but he's got, he's really lonely and he's got secrets that he's hiding from everybody, which is something that, once again, Moffat brings back later on.
Something that he definitely stole from the Seventh Doctor. Not really.
Not really.
Some Doctor did have a lot of secrets, though.
Well, yeah, but just you wait.
Anyway, the droids start attacking.
Yeah, so they closed, like, all the doors, so the Doctor's
37 and hasn't aged a day since she was 17.
Yeah, she seems really surprised that the Doctor hasn't aged, like, at all since between all her visits with him, and he's like...
But I was like, yeah, you haven't really aged either.
So, yeah, the Doctor's like, if we go through, then all the doors will close behind me, and I'll be trapped there. But then he just does it, so... He, like, comes flying through on the horse through a window of some sort. I think they did film the Versailles scenes on location somewhere, maybe not necessarily at Versailles, because I was reading that apparently the horse wasn't allowed, like, in the actual ballroom, which is... Because I actually noticed this in the story, like, the scenes where David Tennant's on the horse, like, look kind of like they were composited in later, which is because they actually were. The horse wasn't allowed in the actual ballroom, so they filmed him on the horse somewhere else and composited it into the ballroom.
It's interesting. I wonder why they wouldn't allow the horse in. I mean, what would be the
well, if they filmed it at somewhere not at actual Versailles, but if they filmed it at somewhere that had, like, historical value like that, or it was expensive, then they wouldn't have let the horse in because they would have, I don't know, damaged the floor. The horse might have damaged some piece of the building.
I don't know.
And also, just generally taking a horse inside is just considered, like, bad manners, like...
Oh, yeah,
kind of like how you're supposed to take your hat off.
That last time I did that, so I can see where they're coming from.
So yeah, then the Doctor reveals that because he smashed the time door, that all of them are closed now, and the droids are stuck there. So they turn off because they have no purpose anymore. Kind of like reminded me of the Ninth Doctor and Daleks saying, "You have no purpose anymore. You should just die."
Kind of, yeah.
So the droids shut themselves off, and now the Doctor's with Rennet, and he's like, well, I've got 3,000 years before I can catch up with my TARDIS, so looks like I'm staying here. And she's like, will you, though? And he's like, I don't know what you're saying. All the doors are closed. Like, yeah, I pretty much have to stay.
She's like, I've got something to show you, doctor.
Turns out she moved the fireplace. Okay, the explanation for this was complete and utter nonsense, even for this story. But like the doctor says, like because the fireplace had been moved, it had already been disconnected from the ship before the doctor closed all the doors. So now he can reconnect it to the ship and open the door again.
Plus, how do you move a fireplace? Just how do you do that?
We get in a lot of masons and carpenters, and you pay them a lot of money to disassemble it and then
Oh, it's 18th
reassemble it.
century France. They probably just did it all for free or like pennies.
Well, I don't know if they'd do it for free
Pennies
by choice. They would do it for
or
free
grass.
because if they didn't, then they would be exiled or executed. You know, and at that point, is it really free labor? Because if they don't do it, you know, you're going to have to pay for this execution. There's so many costs that go along with that. Like, wouldn't it be cheaper to just pay the people to do the job?
I don't know. It'd probably be cheaper to just threaten them with execution if they don't do it. Then they'll do it, and you won't have to worry about it.
Yeah, but what if one guy's just like, you know what? Yeah, I want to die. Just do it. Just do it. He's like, oh shoot, they called my bluff.
Anyway,
So the doctor goes back and then he looks through the fireplace. He's like, hey, you wanna come with me? And that's like, yes. So she goes to pack her bag, but as she looks out the window, I think she realizes that doctor's never coming back,
yeah,
and not by his
well,
own choice.
It's not really true. Actually, he does come back, but much later.
Yeah, apparently right after she died. She
Yeah.
died at 42. Bummer.
That sucks. Might have been a typical age at that, or I mean, not a typical age, but 42 seems really young, a really young age to die at now. But it might not have been as young in like the mid 1700s.
Well, I think most people live to be about 60.
Yeah, at least 60.
In that
So
time
it's
period.
not as drastic, but it's still pretty young.
Mm-hmm.
But
So-
the doctor sees her hearse getting
Drive away.
taken out of Versailles. This is the shot that I thought made Versailles look really small. Probably just how they shot
Framed
it,
how
or
Euros framed it. Euros.
or just the location that they were at.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
It was also at nighttime, which may have obscured some of the detail, I
Yeah.
guess.
well,
But
like
yeah.
dusk, I guess.
So they gave, well, the king, I guess, gives the doctor like a letter from Renette. He's like, wow, you really don't age at all. He's like, what does the letter say? And the doctor's like, you really think I'm going to read it to you? The king's
Really
like,
think
all right. I mean, the doctor doesn't say that. The doctor actually doesn't say anything, and the king realizes that his request is absurd.
And
So then the doctor goes back to the spaceship, and Rose is like all happy-go-lucky, but I think Mickey realizes what happened, so Mickey like drags Rose off to give the doctor some alone time. Mickey's the real MVP right there.
when is Mickey not the MVP?
This is a good
He's been
point.
the MVP in every story he's been in.
Because Rose is like, so what's happening? Where are we going next? And the doctor's like kind of sad looking at the console, kind of touching things, and she's like, are you okay? And he's like, yeah, I'm always okay. And Mickey's like, come on, Rose, you've got to show me the rest of this TARDIS.
Nice.
Kind of harkens back to the first Doctor in, what was the story that Dodo got joined the TARDIS in?
The War Machines.
No,
she
it was
joined?
that she joined, where she
Oh
ran
yeah.
on.
I don't
The one
remember.
before. But anyway, actually, it was the Massacre. That's right, it was the Massacre.
Oh yeah, it was Massacre.
But like the first Doctor going like, everybody always leaves me, like I'm always alone.
yeah, I guess.
So
that they never really did anything with back then.
Yeah, but that seems like they're bringing it back up now with Renette saying like, oh, you're always alone, and the Doctor now like being really sad that Renette's died and he didn't get a chance to show her the stars, I guess. But so,
Wow. It's sentimental.
I mean, it was a little bit. It was one of the better executed sad moments on the show so far. I mean, better than what's his name's death in that Sixth Doctor story where he's like, I'll never get to put on my definitive version of Hamlet. 2 doctors. When he died in the restaurant.
Oh, yeah. That guy.
Like, this is one of the better executed sad moments, I think, so far.
Yeah, I felt nothing. Just as I felt
Well,
nothing
you feel
for the,
like
for
when
the past three and a half
when do you
years.
feel anything? One day we're gonna crack the facade of your cold stone heart. and then by cracking the facade, your heart will just fall apart because if your heart is completely made of stone and it cracks, then it's donezo. But anyway, the doctor reads the letter and she's saying like, "Hey, I hope you have a good life. I know you're never coming back, and I know that wasn't really your choice because that time kind of really ill-defined how time works on that spaceship. Since it seems every time we came through that fireplace, the amount of time that passed seemed to be a little bit random. But anyway,
I think one of the characters, maybe it was even Renette in the letter, at this point wonders like, we never did figure out why the ship was connected
it's
to France.
the doctor Rose says it like right at the end of the story. But then when the TARDIS dematerializes, you see that the name of the ship is the SS Madame de Pompadour,
Yeah.
which is why they were after the real Madame de Pompadour because they thought that her brain would therefore be compatible with the ship.
Yep.
And then it begins with it ends with a trailer for next week, which spoils the return of the Cybermen, which you would have already known because one of the stories in the two-parter is named Rise of the Cybermen. So.
Yeah. But it's a nice classic title. So, yeah.
Well, it's the Age of Steel and Rise of the Cybermen, like the most classic-esque titles we've had so far, I guess.
Yeah, more so than The Girl in the Fireplace.
Yeah, apparently like one of the working titles for this story was Madame de Pompadour, which would have just been a terrible title.
Yeah, it would have.
And yeah, I don't know. I thought the story was decent. Not the best of the season. I don't think it comes up to School Reunion, but in my opinion, probably second.
Yeah, I mean, I really didn't like the romance aspect. Not that I ever do. Didn't really like the love triangle aspect that they are really playing up now. And hope they sort of don't really play it up as much, but I'm not really getting my hopes too high up there. But
But like besides that,
but I mean, besides that, it was all right. I guess they're doing more interesting things with time travel than they ever have done, so that's pretty cool. But I
yeah,
just thought it was dragged down by some of the love triangle shenanigans.
I think in my opinion, a lot of this season and a lot of next season are dragged down by Rose's love shenanigans and the Doctor's.
Doctor's kind of playing into it as well. Maybe not as much as Rose, but
Yeah, so I was gonna say the Doctor's like intentional disregard, I guess, of Rose's advances. But I don't know. I mean, I think at some point the stories will be dragged down by that, but I think you can still at least acknowledge some of the merits of the stories beyond that.
this is a solid script from Moffat. I know in series one, I sort of like disliked his writing because I don't know, it just felt the humor didn't land and felt kind of out of place. But I guess it suits the 10th Doctor a little more. You know, he's not as serious as the Ninth Doctor,
Yeah.
so maybe that's why it just felt a lot more solid script wise. I also think there weren't as many dumb jokes. I just thought a lot of the humor in like the Doctor dances and whatever the other one was called,
Empty Child.
Empty Child, didn't land. Whereas here, there wasn't necessarily as much out of place humor. I don't know. Maybe that had something to do with needing to write like an 18th century character.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe not. I don't know.
Or it may have been, I don't know, I think the Doctor dances at Empty Child was a lot of Moffat's own idea, whereas the story was kind of Russell T was like, hey, I want to do a story that involves like clockwork droids in 18th century France, and Moffat was like, I can do that. Because I think Russell T had, the story of the Turk, the supposed mechanical machine back in, I don't know, a long time ago, pre-1700s, that could apparently play chess against people, but then it was revealed to be like a big hoax and was just a guy like controlling the Turk from underneath the table or whatever. But like the Russell T wanted to give it like a potential kind of mysterious explanation with the clockwork droids. So maybe that played into Moffat not going so ham on
Yeah.
on the weird dialogue.
What would be really cool is a sort of pseudo-historical serial like this, where it's revealed that a famous person from history was actually like a robot or something.
There is an audio that actually directly deals with the Turk, where the Eighth Doctor is actually traveling with Mary Shelley. And it's revealed in that story that the Turk is actually like a Cyberman who had fallen through time.
Huh.
But yeah, solid story in my opinion.
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm kind of unfazed by the love stuff at this point because I've already seen it all play out. So I'm trying to look beyond that, trying to ignore it, which maybe is not a fair way to assess the story, but that's why we have you, Keon. You can assess the story with all the love nonsense
with my
in it.
objective eye.
We never claimed this podcast was thoroughly objective, did we?
No, I mean, it pretty much can't be.
Nope. You can email us at thedoctor@decorativevegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on mechanical machines. That is redundant. You can find us on YouTube, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts, all at Trust Your Doctor. Leave a rating if you liked the show.
Check us out on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor. Like us on Facebook. Also check us out on Twitter at TYD Podcast and follow us on Twitter. And next time we're watching Rise of the Cybermen and The Age of Steel. But until then, the end.